In a corner of Portugal, there lies a natural, wonderful kingdom of geological wrinkles and seas of rock, scrubland and forests. Here, the rivers run pure and crystalline water, and hundreds of elusive species find abundance and safety. On the hills, there are waterfalls and dormant forces. Predator and prey face each other every day, and the seasons mark the rhythm of life that renews and perpetuates itself each year. These are Portugal's mountains of wonder. Trás-os-Montes lies at the northeast tip of Portugal and is the most remote of the country's provinces. Here, two relatively small mountains, Alvão and Marão, enclose nonetheless vast natural riches, beyond of what would be expected. That is why local and prominent writer Miguel Torga nicknamed the region the Wonderful Kingdom. Every winter, the region gets covered with snow. It is a time when life almost stops. Everything is dormant, and activity is reduced to a minimum. When ice starts to melt and rain arrives, the land is soaked and the flow of streams and rivers is boosted. Winter is long here. To survive, some animals seek shelter underground. This small mammal is in deep sleep. Hanging in the ceiling of an old mine, it awaits for more favorable days, lowering his body temperature and cardio and breathing frequencies. He's able to stay alive while reducing his metabolism to a minimum. It's a horseshoe bat, and it'll remain motionless in this shelter for some more weeks. Other bat species also hibernate here. The site, formerly explored by man, is now an important haven for these mouse-eared bats, a species threatened with extinction. When spring arrives, these winged mammals awake and return to active life. In the beginning of April, the hills are filled with flowers. Streams and rivers flow abundantly at this time. The crystal clear waters of the Olu, the most iconic of local rivers, follow their sinuous course for 36 kilometers downstream and are a life support for thousands of animals. One of its famous inhabitants is the European dipper. Diving at small depths, this bird searches for insect larvae hidden in the underwater vegetation or underneath stones and pebbles. These bizarre-looking beings are part of the dipper's menu and excellent bioindicators of the water's quality. This is a mayfly larva. Mayfly larvae can only survive in unpolluted streams and rivers, and its presence attests to this river's water purity. All across the river, there's plenty to eat. Larvae of all kinds, salamanders, worms and other prey are caught by the local couple. It is April, and the couple is on one of the busiest times of the year, the breeding season. Built from moss and other vegetation on top of a small waterfall, the nest houses 3 hungry chicks. This bird only exists in mountain rivers with thoroughly oxygenated waters, and it is the only passerine that dives to hunt. The couple bring food again and again to the chicks, but with due caution. They can not only reveal the nest location to a predator, as they might get preyed upon themselves. If all goes well with this brood, they might reuse the nest immediately after the chicks fledge. But above the Orluz Valley, the clouded sky gets denser and darker. Everywhere in the region, streams overflow, and the Orlu rises suddenly. The weir, where the dippers found harmony and tranquility, is now an immense rapid. The nest is submerged, and the brood might not have made it on time. The land is saturated with water, and everywhere the excess slides down the hills. In the nests of Myrmica aloba ants, water sets the alarm off. They have to take their offspring to safety. But these big larvae are not ants in development. They are instead caterpillars of the Alcon blue butterfly, since they hatched 8 months before. The caterpillars release an alamo that emulates the odor of the ant's larvae. Adult ants are impelled to take care of the caterpillars as they do to their own offspring. The devotion and determination of the ants is amazing, considering that throughout this yearly cycle of chemical deceit, they gain close to nothing. Calmness returns, and normal routines take place again. In one of the river's banks, a male blackbird brings a mouthful of food to the chicks, while the female keeps searching for more food. Close by, a pied wagtail takes on a refreshing bath. The female blackbird returns to the nest with succulent worms that the chicks devour quickly. Feeding the brood is a non-stop job that the couple share, and so far, so good for these chicks. At the top of the Alvão mountain range, the forests and meadows gain new life with the cool and damp mornings. In these grass and flower fields, there are some fairly unknown animals to be discovered. Owl flies are very common here, but they are virtually unknown to the public. Without energy from the sun, their delicate wings are not operational. If cold temperatures last throughout the day, many of them can become easy prey for birds and small mammals. After climbing up the grass, an adult dragonfly emerges from its larval phase. It has spent 2 years in an aquatic form and will now fly to mate elsewhere. But before, it needs to stretch its wings, becoming very vulnerable for the moment. As with owlflies, they also have to wait for the sun to warm up their wing fluids so that they can be activated. Only then can they go about their mating missions. These extremely fertile meadows harbour some of the riches of the Portuguese flora, such as the heath-spotted orchid, endemic and an icon of Atlantic flora. The abundance of nutrients in the soil and the mild Atlantic climate allow for gigantism, and these are some of the biggest orchid individuals at the Alvão mountain range. In the deeper and more sheltered valleys of Alvão, water from the last downpour still flows, rising the flow of rivers. The small stream of Portrays becomes a landscape paradise, and many plants, such as St. Patrick's cabbage, of typical alpine morphology, and others, find refuge here. But the fauna is also well represented here. The black slug, which can reach 12 centimeters, or this unusually large snail, with a shell larger than a golf ball, are examples of animals with unusual sizes for their species. Early in the morning, a rhinoceros beetle still searches for a shelter to hide during the day. It is one of the largest beetles in Portugal. In the denser forests of Alvão and Marão, there are lots of passerines breeding. A wren couple has a nest nearby and is busy feeding their chicks, and both male and female have no rest. The brood is safe in the nest on a ball of moss. There are 86 passerine species known in the region, and besides wrens, many others choose these calm forests to breed. This short-toed tree creeper is a bit late in its breeding season and is still carrying soft and light materials to cozy up the nest, while this neighboring chaffinch feeds its already fledged chick. It's a dangerous time for these young birds. Their flying skills are not yet mastered, and they can become easy prey if they fall to the ground. But they can rest for now. This southern smooth snake feeds only on other reptiles and insects. It is just looking for a shelter. The stream of Arnal, a local village, still flows like it was winter due to the last downpour. On one of its banks, there's a stone wall, a perfect hiding place for a grey wagtail's nest. Aquatic insects are the main course for its chicks, who seem never to be fed enough. The typical scrubland of the Great Alvão Plateau are the nesting site of larger birds. It's a perfect place for a Montagu's Harrier couple. This female snuggles the nest and protects the eggs, while the male patrols the territory from high above. They arrived from Africa in March after wintering there, and now there's still 2 weeks left of incubation. Not far, a hoopoe has caught a mole cricket. These succulent insects are an invaluable resource for these birds. The hoopoe's chicks are now 3 weeks old, and they'll soon fledge. All the food that the parents bring is never enough, and the adult leaves immediately for another hunt. The couple is constantly on the watch for mole crickets, chrysalises, and other insects, and small reptiles. This is their first brood, and if food remains abundant as spring advances, they may indeed lay another clutch and succeed in raising a second brood. The blue tit is one of the 5 tit species that breed in the region. This one has 4 mouths to feed in the nest. Ever watchful, he makes sure everything is safe before entering the stone wall where the nest is hidden. As summer brings warmer days, in the meadows there's a transformation coming about. Feeling the heat in the ground, the caterpillars of the Alcon blue pupate just some centimeters below the surface. At this time, they no longer deceive the ants. After hatching, they have to emerge quickly from the ground so their hosts don't take them as prey now. The first to emerge are the males. Synchronized by the weather, little blue butterflies come out of the ground and climb the vegetation. They have just a few minutes to pump hemolymph so their wings stretch and enable them to fly, and are extremely vulnerable at this time. Watchful predators are waiting. Many males may never get to mate. In the ant's nest, there remains only the vestiges of myrmecophily, the base behavior of these 2 insects' association. About a week later, when females emerge, the mating urge is such that even though this female's already taken, several males try to dislodge the chosen one. So dazzled are some that they are simply not giving up on this female when plenty more untaken females are around. In a quieter place, other couples exchange genes and secure their lineage into the future. A female can nonetheless mate with several males to further diversify her offspring's gene pool. This male, tired by the mating frenzy, tries to relax and recover, but others, distracted or exhausted, end up caught in spiders' webs. These man-managed meadows are essential to the survival of the Alcon blue butterfly, which has had an endangered status since 1994. The Alcon blue lays exclusively in one plant, the marsh gentian, which is abundant in this habitat. If no marsh gentians are around, then the Alcon blue cannot reproduce, enhancing the importance of these meadows and their management. Other butterfly species and animals also use these meadows. They either feed on nectars of several plants or secure the continuity of their species. This female stick insect seems more interested in eating than on the copulating male on her back. Hidden in the vegetation, a three-toed skink may look like a snake, but a closer look to its vestigial feet reveals evolutionary remnants of the time this lizard still walked. Moth caterpillars, too, make these meadows their home, like this Pisologaster lotti, or this one belonging to a small emperor moth. On the ground, male crickets try to attract females with their songs, while closer to streams and puddles, damselflies and dragonflies search for the best place to lay their eggs. Laying strategies vary from species to species. In this one, male and female are still attached during laying. And here, on the ground, there are lethal, motionless traps. Viscosity is the main weapon of this plant, a sundew. It is carnivorous, and any insect with bad luck enough to get its sticky hug ends up as food. In the great Alvão plateau, the sunny days favor the birds of prey. Many reptiles take the chance to bask in the sun and don't go unnoticed by the Montagu's harriers. The two couples that are nesting here this year already have chicks to feed. Males do most of the hunting. They bring the food to the females, who then feed the young harriers. Passing on the food is done in mid-air, and not always goes to plan. This time, they succeed. While the female returns to the nest, the male goes on to another hunt. One last look over the nest, and off he goes. In the first weeks, The diet of these small creatures consists mainly of small birds and reptiles. Little by little, the prey is torn apart and shared by the 4 chicks. About 100 meters away, the neighboring female returns to the nest. This brood has only 3 chicks. If it wants to survive, the smaller chick will have to try harder so that its brothers won't eat everything. Montagu's harriers are one of the few raptors that nest in the ground. The nest is safe. The threat from hunger is greater than that of predation, and for now, the family can venture in a siesta. But the chick's appetite will return quickly, and for the male, hunting is a continuous task. Ever watchful for potential prey, he's a constant threat to other birds and reptiles. This ocellated lizard better beware while he baths. He may end up like this other, a snack to the harrier's chicks. One of the males brings a new meal. During the 40 days before fledging, the chicks will eat an average of 10 prey a day. The total number of reptiles and small birds needed to support these 2 harrier families is immense, and only a rich and healthy habitat can provide it. Although not really a threat, flies can be strenuous to the young harriers. They are attracted by the meat residue and seem not to leave no matter what. Even the mother is bothered and tries to kick off the mobbing insects. Close by, on a softer soil area, the sand wasp alights on the ground. At the end of a 20-centimeter tunnel in the ground, there lies a hungry larva, and each time the adult returns, it opens the den's entrance. These frenetic insects of about 2.5 centimeters seem unstoppable. Even these small stones, true monoliths at the wasp scale, are easily moved. Bees, flies, or grasshoppers may fall prey to these mighty predators. A sand wasp of another species shares the same space. Its flight skills are remarkable, carrying prey the same weight or even heavier than it. This time, it caught a grasshopper. After leaving the prey, the adult seals off the den again, where the larva stays for another 2 weeks. The geology of the region is rich, and to the untrained eye, the distinct lithologies of Alvão and Marão may suggest the 2 mountains have different origins. But looks can deceive. The history of both mountains goes back 500 million years, when the Iberian Peninsula was submerged in the margins of the supercontinent Gondwana and accumulated sediments. Later, at about 390 million years, the plate collision known as Beriscan orogeny started, and the Iberian Peninsula was affected by it. As a result of this collisional process, the large granitic rock areas visible nowadays at the surface in Alvão formed at around 7 kilometers deep. On the other hand, the transformation of sediments originated metasedimentary rocks, like the schists and quartzites that rise mainly in Marão and west side Alvão. Of much later tectonic origin is the Vila Real, the district capital, fault. Right through the middle of the city it goes, and through it flows the river Corgu, an invaluable life support to many fauna and flora. Here lies a true window into the past, a relic from a world long gone. Recent studies show that the royal fern hasn't changed in the last 180 million years. It's a testimony to life on Earth, having witnessed the extinction of the dinosaurs, the rise of men and all known history, a blink at this time scale. The royal fern can be found almost anywhere on the planet. On the sandy riverbed of the Corgu, there lives one of the biggest freshwater bivalves of Portugal, the duck mussel. A single individual can filter up to 50 liters of water a day. A colony can contribute considerably to the purification of a river's water. In the reproductive season, this mollusk uses the fish that pass by to spread minute larvae. The larva will fix itself to the gills of the fish host and, at its mercy, can go upstream and colonize new areas. Fish abundance and calm stretches of river motivate the occurrence of the very skilled kingfisher. It is surely one of the most emblematic birds of Europe and a permanent threat to those living below the surface. It is now mid-July. Back on the Alvão plateau, the Montagu's Harrier's chicks are now more than a month old and have lost their down almost entirely. They now explore the vicinities of the old nest, which is not home anymore. With minor attention required by the young harriers, the female is freer and also joins the hunting effort. In the scrubs, there are small and naive young birds that just fledged. For an experienced mother focused on her mission, this bounty comes in the right season. The male can now have a break. Each juvenile eats up to 2 prey a day, and at this time they no longer have help from mother. Prey is left whole, and despite small, a Sardinian warbler can represent a challenge to the young harrier. This chick may have bigger eyes than belly. Or maybe not. At the end of August, back on the meadows, the marsh gentians have bloomed. In the last week, the eggs of the Alcon blue butterfly have developed, and it is now the right time to hatch, as the caterpillars feed exclusively on this flower's stamina. Inside the flowers, the 2-millimeter caterpillars go on feeding and growing. At about 12 days old, they pierce the flower and let themselves fall to the ground. The chemical deceit game restarts. They have to trick the Myrmica alba ants by releasing the pheromones that simulate the ant's larvae odor. Tricked by the pheromone, the ant carries the caterpillar to its nest as if it was a lost ant larva, thus renewing the halcon blue life cycle. Just a few meters from the chemical game between insects, the orlu keeps on shearing the mountain. In its waters, a marbled newt rests on an algae tuft. It can hold its breath for quite a while, but still has to go regularly to the surface to breathe. It's one of the 10 amphibian species that can be found here. The river is filled with predators and prey in constant activity. These fish of the Cyprinidae family feed on small animals or vegetable matter brought by the current. But in this permanent game of hide and seek, it pays off to be on the watch. This young trout decides to play it safe and has good reasons for it. A grass snake is on the hunt. With 1.2 meters, any small fish is a potential snack. Amphibians, other reptiles, and even mammals are not safe from it. Its silhouette is well known around here, and no resident of the river remains indifferent. Both female and male emerald lizards prefer not to risk and leave for more discreet places. The orlu follows its descent, and as autumn arrives, its flow rises due to the first rain and more humid days. At mid-course, the water falls abruptly through several terraces. It's a total of close to 200 meters that make the Fischgechte Emelo one of the tallest waterfalls in Europe. With the autumn splendor, the color palette changes. And now, at Marão and Alvão, warmer hues reign. The change in leaf color is a sign of aging. Some trees are able to degrade chlorophyll and other leaf nutrients and store them in the trunk, branches and roots, where they'll remain until needed in the next spring. But other trees are not able to do that. The landscape still holds the green of the alders and narrow-leafed ash, which remain green until leaves fall. Everywhere, the scenery is changing. Trees are the first to show the signs of change, but a closer and more attentive look will also reveal that other plants are also on the change for something. Despite the cold and fewer sunlight hours, some plants have evolved to bloom in autumn. This is the late crocus, endemic to the Iberian Peninsula. With its flower, through the wind and pollinating insects, this plant is able to gather information of its surroundings. It is then able to adjust its reproduction to the most favorable scenario, either by subterranean way or by the more familiar process of seeds. With more rain and humidity, fungi also start to appear through mushrooms of several shapes and colors. Despite being toxic to humans, the fly agaric is a snack to the black slug. The presence of these fungi can indicate good air and soil quality. Autumn is also a favorable season for amphibians to disperse and colonize new territories. This Iberian frog, endemic to the Iberian Peninsula, takes advantage of the last mild days before winter comes. This European toad just emerged from its aquatic phase. The gold-striped salamander awaited for the evening to forage. It only exists in the northwestern corner of the Iberian Peninsula. With the cooler air of the evening and taking cover in the approaching night, roe deer become more active in the hills of Marão. These mammals have unique reproductive characteristics among ungulates. After mating in summer, development of the embryo is suspended for about 5 months. This is called embryonic diapause. Then, in December, a protein existing exclusively on this species is released in the female's body, causing a chain of events that leads to the fixation of the embryo in the uterus. A 130-day gestation period follows. Calves are born between April and May, when quality and abundance of food are maximum. Everything seems tranquil, and only some agitation of young wild boar captures the attention of this couple and calf. But in the natural world, death for some means bonanza for others. This female roe deer has succumbed to difficulties brought by the approaching winter. The state of its carcass shows the abundance it represented to some animals. Dusk brings the night shift. Many animals hide and rest, while others awake and go about their business. With the abundance of pines in the ground, this house mouse will certainly not starve. Winter is coming, and it has to store food in its subterranean network of tunnels. For this essentially nocturnal species, autumn slows down its reproductive activity. A female can have up to 10 broods in a year, but it only breeds in colder months when conditions are exceptional. Hedgehogs are another mammal that prefers darkness to forage. Moths also leave their shelters and prepare to fly, and there are lots of species in the region. Autumn advances and morning fogs become more common. The dynamics of these low-altitude clouds is similar to that of sea swells reaching a rocky shore. Speeding up the images 25 times, we can witness the repetition of these natural mechanisms, albeit at different timescales. A couple of weeks further, many of the wildlife of these territories will hide or hibernate. Winter will be tough and demanding, and only the fittest will pass the test. At Alvão and Marão, there are countless natural wonders. Many of these scenarios are unique and integrated in the Natura 2000 network. But as elsewhere in our planet, they should not be taken for granted. It depends on all of us to promote and conserve places like this, from the local inhabitant to the occasional visitor. Perhaps we should remember Miguel Torga's words. I live nature integrated on it. Like such, I even get to feel on certain occasions like a rock, dew, flower, or mist. No other spectacle fills me with such plenitude and creates in my spirit such refined sense of the perfect and the eternal. For one to see this wonderful kingdom, it is necessary that one's eyes do not lose their original virginity and one's heart does not hesitate.